What's the worst thing you've gotten away with? I was 7 years old. It was Mother's Day. My dad had been given the task of dragging me to the shops to buy something for my mum. She really loved chocolate covered almonds, so I proudly handed over my pocket money and brought the sweets home. For some reason my dad thought it would be an excellent idea to leave the 7-year-old in charge of more chocolate than they usually saw in a year. Naturally I lasted about a day before the sugary siren call of chocolate melted my 7-year-old resolve. I sucked the chocolate off every almond. I didn't eat the almonds, that would have been disgusting. A few days later I realized with a shock of sugary guilt that just maybe mum would notice what had happened. I did the only thing I could do, let my 3-year-old sister into the room, sit her down and solemnly tell her how very wrong it was she'd eaten mum's special chocolates. I repeated the phrase over and over to her like I was an evil child hypnotist. Eventually she ran out of the room crying to confess what she'd done. I couldn't believe I'd gotten away with it. In the years that followed my family would tell the story every Mother's Day, my sister adding embellishments to her entirely false memory. Last year, at the age of 35 I finally told my family what really happened, and not one of them would believe me, including my sister. TLDR. Jerk kid me steals candy and hypnotizes infant to take the fall. This story is golden. When I was 12-13 my friends and I thought shoplifting was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it was like buying things, but you don't need money. So we would all go down to Woolworths after school and steal £5 of various sweets and chocolate each. Every day. For a year. So for the 40-week school year of stealing £5 a day for 5 days a week, that adds up to £1,000 of sheer theft. £1,000 for a 12-year-old to steal from a shop and never get caught. Until one day they wised up to us and sent out security after school to catch the culprits. Luckily enough for me, I wasn't a complete idiot and realized that they were watching our every move. So I told my mate that we should just go home. But he didn't listen and stole the Twix that got him in the biggest crap of his adolescent life. When I saw the loss prevention guys come after him, I was not a courageous warrior. I aborted mission as fast as possible, and they never caught on to me as the chain went bankrupt soon after. So I can take grand larceny off of my bucket list. Woolworths was a national treasure. This deeply upsets me. When I was 16 years old, I borrowed the family car. It was winter in Toronto right after a storm and the roads were crap. I lived in the country so there were a lot of ditches. Anyway, came to this T intersection, hit the brakes and just slid into the ditch on the other side into 10 feet of snow. Now my stepfather was kind of a dong and I wasn't really doing anything bad, but I knew I would be blamed and lose access to the car, which was a death knell for a teen who lives in the country with no wheels. I was losing hope and just about ready to make the walk. No cell phones back then. Home went over the hill, like a freaking savior. Chugs this tractor. Honestly, I think I freaking cried when I saw this guy. Anyway, he stopped, asked me if I needed help and tried to drag me out. Joy turned to sorrow when it seemed like I was hung up on something and he couldn't get me out. Then I realized that I had the parking brake on. I didn't tell him that. I guess whatever was hanging me up magically resolved itself after getting out of the ditch. And a careful examination of the car, I noticed that everything was fine and you couldn't tell I went into the ditch. I thanked this amazing person and went about my day, never telling anyone this story and feeling like I got away with the crime of the century. I never thought of it again until the spring when I was sitting at the kitchen table and my stepfather and mother were talking about the car. He was saying that he just took the car in for an oil change and the mechanic pulled out a whole bunch of leaves, dirt and small branches from the engine compartment. He was baffled as to what happened and said the mechanic had never seen anything like it before. Needless to say, I still crack up when I tell this story, and it was 25 years ago. He never figured it out and I never told him. He'd probably take your car anyway, even after all this time. Faked graduating from college well enough to get into grad school. I was set to graduate already and applied to grad school and got accepted. That summer my university said I was actually 3 hours short and would have to take a summer course that ended in mid-August. My graduate program started the 1st of August. All my records were pending for the whole first month I was there, and technically I wasn't qualified to attend. I had to convince the school's administrators that my undergrad university was staffed by complete incompetents who couldn't get accurate records out. At one point I was going to just have to make a 5-hour drive back to get the records. Conveniently in mid-August. Joke's on them. The program sucked and I dropped out within my first semester. It's not that bad really, but here it is. On a field trip in like 3rd grade, I was playing some kind of game with my friend, which led me to punch imaginary things for whatever reason. I was also punching the back of the seat. Then I decided to punch the window. I don't know how, but I actually managed to punch through the window. I didn't even think I hit it that hard, but somehow I broke it. The bus had to stop because they didn't want glass flying all over the place. But they had no idea that it was me. My friend actually covered for me and said he thought it was a rock that flew up from somewhere. I'm glad they didn't figure it out, otherwise I would have been in a lot of trouble. Your friend was a true homie. I know this may not sound intense to some, but as a teenager, it was like going to war for pee. I had just started talking to this girl about an hour away from my hometown. She texted me one day and said her parents were gone and she was DTF. Frick, I had zero money and next to no gas in my car. Asked the parents for some gas money and they said no. Started brainstorming and was debating on waving the white flag. Then an angel appeared. My buddy who works with the city called me and asked what I was doing. I said I am in desperate need of gas. He proceeded to tell me that if I can unlock the gate to his work they have gas pumps in the back that aren't in view of the cameras. Frick, this is some SEAL Team 6 type of crap. Pulled up Google Maps and printed off the layout of the area. Drove up to the place and parked to walk around and scout out where the cameras were. I put paper over my license plate just to be safe and carried out the mission. Proceeded to drive 80 miles per hour the whole way and made it in time see her parents were home. She invited me inside anyway, to which she gave me the worst blowjob ever. Either way, 10/10 would do it again. TL. DR. Stole a full tank of gas in exchange for terrible blowjob. I'd take a bad BJ over no BJ any day. Weather was horrible. Roads were covered in snow. It was piled up pretty high. There was no one on the roads. I was delivering pizza. I drove on both sides of the road, ran every light and was basically reckless, just to keep going while maintaining control in the best grooves of the snow. It was going okay when suddenly, bam. Red and blue lights. He pulled me over. I thought I was about to be waiting in the snow to be impounded. The cop rolled down his window, and I apologized for the crazy driving. I didn't even finish before he cut me off, and told me he wanted me to drive in front of him. He wanted me to guide him through the best path to an accident. I did, and he thanked me. It was a crazy day. At a summer camp I was walking to my cabin when I passed someone's window with a crack in the glass. I mistakenly thought my buddy was in the room and knocked on it trying to get his attention on the crack for some stupid reason. As I was knocking, my buddy came up behind me and said that wasn't his cabin. So we rush off as it might have been a cabin leader's room or something. About 20 minutes later my friend had to go to the nurse to get his medicine and we hike up to the main office. This kid is there with his hand all bloody and cut up while the nurse is wrapping it up. I asked what happened. Someone came up and banged on my window. I tapped back and it broke. Technically it was his fault for banging on the glass as I knocked normally and it was fine. But I felt guilty about that for months afterwards. Especially because the camp had a rule where if you break a window you have to pay to replace it. Reminds me of when my sister was a kid. She banged on the bathroom window, which was next to the toilet, while my dad was using it. I think she wanted to scare him or something, but the window broke and glass shattered all over him as he was taking a leak. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom was an architecture student and she would take me with her to campus while she worked on projects. I would run around and explore the entire building, and one day I found a room full of what I think were student projects of buildings. 5-6-year-old me was so excited because I got to play Godzilla and left that room so very satisfied. It wasn't until much later and I was much older that I realized I got away with destroying a bunch of poor college students' class projects. I would have died. I was an architectural engineering student and made a model at least once per semester. I'm extremely detail oriented and would spend hours on end working on those things. I don't know what I would have done if I walked in the studio one day and saw my model destroyed. Not to make you feel any worse or whatever. When I was 12 I snuck into my deaf, elderly neighbor's home. My friends and I could see her through the back door just lounging and watching TV. Being a really cool guy I bet them I could go in her house and take a snack without her noticing. As they watched, I crept in her unlocked door and stood right behind her while she read a closed captioning of Golden Girls from her Lazy Boy. When the screen went black I could see my own reflection on the TV and I totally froze. Luckily, she didn't notice. After lurking for my friend's amusement, which seemed like an eternity, I tiptoed to her fridge and grabbed something, I can't remember what, to take as my snack. I made it out but still consider it one of my worst moments in life. I could see myself doing something like this and still try to sew everything quietly. In college I joined the Humane Society group. They also joined the vegan vegetarian group because both were small and the veg group wanted to be more interactive with animal rights. Anyway, when I first joined they were having a potluck. I brought some rolls my mom made, with onion, garlic, poppy seed, etc. on top. My rolls were the first things to go and everyone was raving over them, breaking them in half so more people could enjoy them. A few minutes go by and a bunch more people showed up and the group leader announces, "Don't forget to label your foods if they're not vegan." Yup, I just gave about 24 vegans milk and eggs. No vegan diet, no vegan powers. It had to be almost 10 years ago now and I was maybe 8 or 9. The day was going good and when I woke up that morning I never imagined that day I would do something so immoral. I was shopping at an Albertsons or Vons or something with my mom and when we're at the front counter buying our crap, I see a 99-cent mini crossword puzzle book up where all the candies are. It was so small I slipped it into my pocket, and I swear, it was just for fun. I was going to put it back. Little did I know until I got home. I actually kept it in my pocket and got away with stealing it. I swear it haunts me to this day. That's almost as bad as stealing a balloon. This happened a long time ago when my brother and I were little kids. Our church used to have little sales on Sunday where they would sell random stuff. Well, they always used to sell frozen chicken nuggets as one of their regular items. So one Sunday this naughty kid from church comes up to me and starts convincing me and my brother to go steal the chicken nuggets from the church freezer. Now I love me some chicken nuggets, and I was a kid, so I thought, hey, no one's gonna know about this. They won't miss a box of chicken nuggets. So my brother and I devised a plan where he would keep watch and I would get the chicken nuggets and run them to the car. When we got the chicken nuggets to the car the kid comes up to us and tell us we did a good job and that we should meet up the next day after school and eat them together. But after we got home I felt so guilty that I told my dad about it. He got upset, but he understood. He went back to the church and paid them for the chicken nuggets, and we ate them the next day after school with our dad as the naughty kid walked by our house watching. My school used a restriction software called Foolproof. My CAD teacher was out that day, so I jumped on one of the stations that had a computer. My first attempt at the password worked. It was admin. I switched the password to my favorite alphanumeric combo and changed the background to a man projectile crapping off of a diving board. Then locked it. I found out this software also locked the boot menu BIOS, so they really have no choice but to pull the HDD and wipe it. I did get the opportunity to watch a tech try to fix it a few days later, while pointing the screen away from the class. He was unsuccessful. In 3rd grade, I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my Uncle Max's toupee and I glued it on my face when I was Moses in my Hebrew school play. In 5th grade, I knocked my sister Edie down the stairs and I blamed it on the dog. When my mom sent me to the summer camp for fat kids and then they served lunch, I got nuts and I pigged out and they kicked me out. But the worst thing I ever done, I mixed a pot of fake puke at home and then I went to this movie theater, hid the puke in my jacket, climbed up to the balcony and then I made a noise like this. Hooah 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 hooah. And then I dumped it over the side, all over the people in the audience. And then, this was horrible. All the people started getting sick and throwing up all over each other. I never felt so bad in my entire life. Hey you guys. A friend of mine was installing a car stereo. He was bent all upside down underneath the dash and his butt was sticking out the passenger door up in the air. I for some reason was playing with a golf club in the front yard of his house. His little brother was there. He was probably 6 or 7 at the time and we were in late teens. I at the time had a tendency to poke someone in the butt if you bent over within arm's distance of me. Naturally seeing an opportunity I took it and poked him in the butt with the end of the golf club. He of course reflexes and bashes his head underneath the dash. Gets up and yells, "Who the frick did that?" I instinctively before he got up put the club in the kid's hands and when asked, pointed at his little brother. There's some more yelling which gets the attention of their father, who comes out wondering what all the commotion is. Then my buddy proceeded to explain he was so upset about. So their dad then takes little brother in and proceeds to give him a good once over physically. I could hear the yelling and crying from outside. It wasn't until 4-5 years ago until I told my buddy the true story. TL. Doctor. Got a kid beaten for poking my friend in this butthole. Got a kid beaten for poking my friend in this butthole. I imagine you kneeling next to your friend bending over with his pants down and pointing to his bungle hole and saying this butthole. When I was in 6th grade I had a end of year science project on plate tectonics. Anyway I procrastinated and spent the month I had to do the project on video games. So now I come into class and everyone has their project. Except me. The teacher gave us some free class time to finish and review our project. I panic because the project is a big chunk of the final grade. So I see this girl with a very nice looking project. Printed out, typed, with images. I ask to take a look at it and she lets me. I look through it and notice her name is only on the cover page. So I quickly go to my desk and draw a cover page with my name on it. Now the hard part. I watch her closely. She finishes looking through her project and puts it in the project bin. Then she goes and starts talking with her friends. I quickly walk over to the project bin with my cover sheet and a stapler. Find her project. Rip her cover sheet off. Staple my cover sheet onto her project. Then I shuffle my project into the bin. I didn't even read the project. It just looked nice. Later on at the end of class the teacher recites the names of the kids who turned their projects in. I'm pleased to hear my name on the list. Now I notice the girl whose project I still go rummaging through her stuff. Then she walks over to the teacher's desk. I am dying from panic at this point so I stealthily move closer to them so that I know what's happening. The teacher and the girl go through the projects one by one and when they hit my cover sheet my heart skipped a beat. But they pass it by and when they are finished looking through the big pile of projects the girl has the most confused look on her face. Then the teacher tells her that she did not turn the project in. The girl starts crying. I feel terrible but it's too late for me to do anything. Self-preservation. I leave the class and that was that. Got 100% on the project. TL. DR stole a school project and rebranded it as my own. This is the first one that made me vocally say wow, what a douche. Good job on that one. I went to high school with this girl who was just awful in every way imaginable. She ended up getting a brand new car and was bragging about how much money her dad paid for it. So naturally my friends and I decided to take her down a notch. We went to her house late at night and hid a bunch of open cans of Friskies cat food in her car under the seats. Apparently spilled cat food is really tough to get out because she had to have all new carpet put in to get rid of the smell. The cat food criminals, as we called ourselves, were never apprehended. When I was homeless, some friends and I spent several $100s from a wallet we found. I feel really bad about it now and wish we'd, at the very least, handed in all the cards that were in it. It must have been devastating for the poor woman who lost it and there's nothing I can do to make up for it except try to be a better person. I can't even justify it by saying we spent it on necessities like food because we spent most of it on alcohol. I was messed up then. Oh man. Speaking of alcohol, my friends and I also used to pull the whole water into wine trick a lot. Basically, you buy a cask of wine, keep the receipt, take it home, open it carefully and tip the wine into a jug or something. Then you refill the wine bladder with water, put it in the box and glue it shut again. After the glue has dried, you return to the shop and ask to swap it for red wine, for example, 2 casks for the price of 1. But all those poor people who ended up with water casks. Not morally wrong. but I got busted in a multiple jurisdiction task force sting selling a half pound to a guy who was obviously flipping up. Tons of cops, bulletproof vests, guns in my face, the whole 9 yards. Ended up skating on the charges due to a technicality. Also, one time my roommate called the cops because her stupid drunk friend was having a panic attack. First words to the 911 operator were, "My friend has a heart condition and is having trouble breathing. She's been drinking heavily and may have been doing other drugs." Needless to say, the cops rolled in with the assumption we were a crack smack house. We lived on that part of town, and every type of cop you could imagine was there several minutes before the ambulance. The roommate was kicked out and we were never charged with anything despite them finding lots of pot paraphernalia and my other roomie's recently deconstructed grow up. Pretty sure I used up all my luck at that apartment. How we got off? As I mentioned, we were busted by a multi-jurisdictional task force including state police, just one agent, ATF, and the county cops. Their case was airtight. They had pictures of us leaving our apartment, arriving on scene, and a documented sale of 2 ounces prior to the half-pound sting. Their force and numbers would have put us away for years had it not also led to our eventual escape from prosecution. When we were booked, it was for some ridiculous reason done on the county level. We went to several continuances and arraignments, until eventually one day the judge told me I was free to go. My lawyer explained that the state feds required the county to drop the charges, as any evidence gathered by any entity other than the county would be non-admissible in a case of the county v. us. The state feds planned to re-indict us in their name in order to apply the full weight of the evidence. Double jeopardy laws required they do this within 9 months of the county's dismissal of charges. So for 9 months we sat, shaking in a shifty apartment and working our crappy jobs waiting for the bomb to drop. Never happened and we are currently listed as null prosequi. Interestingly enough, the second incident occurred within the 9-month window and somehow the state didn't have brains enough to put 2 and 2 together. TLDR. Busted by multiple levels of government. Lowest level charged us. Higher levels requested the charges dropped in order to pick them up. They never did. Hey, smoke weed every day. I was a freshman in college and taking an upper level Spanish course. A classmate of mine skipped a bunch of class and asked to borrow my notes to prep for the final. I was reluctant because I was a bratty 18-year-old and had made myself get up for an 8 AM class 3x a week for the whole semester. I wasn't going to let this guy take that from me. He then mentioned that he worked at a liquor store in town. He told me he'd return my notebook there and compensate me for my time. So my roommate and I went into Uncle's liquor store and there's my classmate, still cannot remember his name, waiting with a cart. He takes us around the store, filling the cart up with cases of beer, handles of liquor and bottles of wine. We get to the cash register and he rings me up. I thought it was some sort of joke that he was just going to let me purchase alcohol underage with no id. That's the worst deal ever. Your total is $2.13. He rang me up for 2 bags of ice. I've never been so paranoid of a security camera in my entire life. I forgot my notebook. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.